Hey everyone, it's Bob here, and I've got this pork belly that I've had curing for over a week, and I want to smoke it, cold smoke it, but I've got a little bit of a problem. You see, my smoker is this 18.5-inch Weber Smokey Mountain, and it's a great smoker, but it is really hard to go very low temperature in this. Sometimes even tough to maintain 225. So I don't think there's any hope of me running a really low temperature low enough to smoke a pork belly to make bacon. So I'm going to do a modification to try to make this work better for cold smoking. So I went on the virtual weberbullet.com and I looked for cold smoker mods. And I found this one by someone named Shao Lin. And this one involves taking a Weber Smokey Joe small grill and using it as the firebox or smoke box to feed smoke into the Smokey Mountain using some ductwork. So I'm going to give that a shot. All right, here are my materials, and this kind of goes from the smoke box to the smoker, like sort of start to finish of the process. So here's my new Smokey Joe that I'm going to modify. I'm going to put some ducting over the vent on top, specifically this starter collar for HVAC ducting, 4 inches. Screw that in over the vent, and then that's a 6-inch. I'm going to reduce it to 4-inch and connect it with these duct clamps. Maybe use some aluminum tape to seal that up really well. And then I'm going to run this flexible dryer conduit from the reducer to a hole that I'm going to put into this door. This is a new door that I bought for my smoker. And the original instructions from Shao Lin say to use a piece of cardboard. I want to do something more permanent, so I'm going to use an actual replacement door, and I'm going to cut a hole in it with a hole saw. And then through that, we're going to put this draft blocker for a dryer, and that will connect to the other end of this ducting and introduce the smoke into the Smokey Mountain. And by that time, it should be pretty cool. And here are the materials that I have for doing this, the tools. Got some machine screws and some nuts, a pair of tin snips just in case, a drill and an extra battery, a couple sets of drill bits, including a unibit, which I think will be very handy for this job, a screwdriver and some bits, some painter's tape, and a couple of Arbors. I don't know which one I'm going to use, probably the bigger one, for the hole saw. So let's get started and see if we can make this thing happen. All right, per Shao Lin's instructions, the first step is to put some tape onto the lid around where this collar will sit. And then we're going to trace around the flanges to show where those tabs will be. And then we will take this off and drill holes on where every other flange would be to secure this to the lid. A couple notes here while I work on attaching the starter collar to the lid of the Smokey Joe. The screws that I'm using are number 8, 32 thread, 5/8 inch long machine screws. 5/8 is longer than it needs to be. You could go maybe half that length and they would be fine. You can see they stick out on the bottom, but it's not a big deal. It won't hurt anything. And then I found that taping and tracing, you can see my marks, wasn't really valuable. It was just sort of hard to work with it. I found it better to just drill one of the flanges in and attach it, and then use that as sort of the basis to drill all the rest of the holes. So when I'm doing that with a 5/32 bit. So I'm going to continue doing that, and then once I have all of the holes drilled through the flanges and the lid, then I'll take the blue tape back off and attach everything. All right, I've got the starter collar attached to the lid here. You can see it's bolted on here, or screwed on. And now I'm going to put some aluminum tape around the edge to make it a little bit more airtight so I don't lose so much smoke. And then I will put on the reducer that will connect to the ductwork. All right, I'm done attaching the starter collar to the Smokey Joe lid. I've got this aluminum tape around the edges, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it's going to be really tight not a lot of leakage of smoke. So now I'm going to attach the reducer so that I can attach the ductwork. Okay, so I sealed up the starter collar with the aluminum tape, and then I attached the reducer, and I used a ring clamp to connect it very tightly. I don't think it's going to leak. And then at the top, I put on my flexible 4-inch ducting, and I clamped that on as well. I will put some aluminum tape around the seam there too to make sure it's sealed, and then I will move to modifying the door. Okay, I used my unibit to drill a starter hole into the aluminum door here, and that starter hole is large enough to fit the center bit on my Arbor for my hole saw. So I should be able to use that to sort of center everything and keep it from jiggling around as I saw the hole for the draft blocker that will accept the ducting and the smoke into the smoker. And underneath of here, just to keep things safe, so I don't drill any unnecessary holes, and it kind of keeps things a little bit steady, I've got a couple pieces of wood. All right, this was a bit of a slog, to be honest, but I was able to cut the hole for the draft blocker in the door using this. This is a 4 1/4 inch hole saw, and you know, this is like not flat, and frankly, this is a cheap hole saw, so it was tough to get it to bite, and it was dangerous. So you know, if you're going to do this, make sure you're wearing safety glasses and gloves that are cut resistant, which I did. And you can see I clamped it down to a couple sawhorses because it's easy to lose stability of this big hole saw when you're trying to cut something like this. But now that it's cut, I can put in the draft blocker and then seal that up with aluminum tape. Okay, I drilled 4 holes through the draft blocker and through the aluminum door, and I added some more of these machine screws and bolted them on. And now we'll use some aluminum tape to make this airtight as well. All right, the duct is now attached to the draft blocker in the door and sealed with aluminum tape. And now you can see the mostly finished product here. The Smokey Joe into the starter collar, into the reducer, into the 4-inch flexible duct, into the draft blocker, into the new door. And now we can just install this onto the smoker whenever we want to do a cold smoke. All right, in total it's taken a couple hours, took some tools, and about $50 worth of parts. It's a lot cheaper if you don't buy a new door, if you just use cardboard like the original instructions say, but like I said, I wanted something more permanent, so you can save $30 by not buying that, and if you do that, then it's about $50 worth of parts. I spent about $80. But yeah, a couple hours worth of work, and you can see we've got the full apparatus here. Our smoke box, where we'll put our charcoal and our wood, and that'll travel through the tube to the Smokey Mountain. And then one thing that I didn't see in the instructions for this mod, but just realized putting it together, is that the draft blocker, the plastic piece that introduces the smoke into the Smokey Mountain, blocks the lower shelf. So we had to remove that. So we'll only be able to smoke onto the top shelf, but still, that's a really nice amount of space and should be able to do what we need to do. And that is it for this mod. And I'm eager to try this weekend, smoking our pork belly to make some homemade bacon.